Welcome back to the First and Long Show. If you're new to the show, welcome to the show. Tonight, we're going to be covering the Week 10 Top 25. If you'll notice, my co-host Mark is not available tonight, so I'm riding solo dolo tonight. So bear with me, folks. I'm going to try to keep this quick, keep it concise, and keep you guys entertained. This was an interesting week, to say the least. You had Oklahoma go down this week to Kansas. You had USC scrape by the skin of their teeth. Arizona took down Arizona State, or excuse me, Oregon State. A lot of upsets happened this week, and hey, we're here for it as college football fans. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and break down what Mark and I came up with for the First and Long college football Week 10 top 25. All right, so you'll see starting off 25 through 21, we've got Tulane at 25, Kansas and USC are both tied at 23. Tied for 21, you've got Kansas State and UCLA. Looking at these, Tulane still doing their thing. Their only loss came to Ole Miss back at the early part of the season. They're still kicking. They're a really good team, honestly, and I'm expecting them to really push for their conference championship with SMU out there. But yeah, that's a tough team. They played Ole Miss pretty tough, and you see Ole Miss is technically in our top 10. They're tied at 10 now, so I wouldn't count on Tulane to be an easy pushover win for anybody. Then you got Kansas coming off of the big upset win over Oklahoma. They do have a couple of losses, but when you upset number 6 Oklahoma, and have a decent resume as Kansas does, you deserve to be in the top 25. USC, look, we wish that USC was the team that we thought they were, but the reality is they're just not very good. Now they're a top 25 team, I think. Still, I think that their offense is good enough to win them some games against even some opponents on this top 25. But the defense is definitely lacking, and they showed that again this week. We're not impressed, right? They're not a playoff contender like we thought that they were, like we hope USC is year in and year out, because they are one of those elite, or I guess you could say elite brands, right? They're kind of a blue blood in a way for college football. So when USC is doing good, the sport's doing good, and we like to see that. But too many holes on defense. A team that does play good defense, though, is UCLA, who's tied at 21st with Kansas State. And, UCLA, they have their struggles on offense. They really struggled this week to put away Colorado in a lot of ways. And Colorado didn't play well, and they were still in it. So we'd like to see UCLA step up on offense. They played pretty good on defense, I thought, this week again. They've got a stud. They've got studs up front. They've got a really good front seven on defense, and that's really kept them in a lot of ball games. So tied at 21, you got Kansas State. Look, Mark and I both were high on Kansas State early in the year. If you didn't catch our Kansas State breakdown, I invite you to go back through to like one of our first videos. And this summer, you could see the Kansas State breakdown. And, whenever I was breaking this down, I knew that they lost a lot of guys. They lost a lot of guys on defense. And, it makes you wonder if a team is actually capable of, going back and winning the Big 12 again. A lot of people forget that Kansas State won the Big 12 last year. That's right. So they beat Texas, they beat Oklahoma, and they're a really good team, and they're really good this year. And I think that Will Howard is getting better, and they're kind of coming into form of the team that we saw and that we broke down in the offseason. And it's really pleasant to see. They look like, one of the better teams in the Big 12, which is kind of where we had them ranked going into this season. At number 20, you've got Utah. Utah took a pretty solid thrashing to number 6 Oregon. But that's kind of what you expect to see from those elite teams, the top 10, the top 5, those playoff contending type teams. They're really good, and they beat really good teams very badly sometimes. And I think that's what happened to Utah. Um, Utah's a really good team too. They did some things pretty nice on offense, but Oregon is a very complete team. So to hang with Oregon is pretty impressive. They weren't really able to do that. This game was pretty much over after the second quarter. But it's not like Oregon put up 50 either, I guess. And they got a few first downs. They didn't do much on offense, and we know that that's Utah's weakness. But yeah, maybe with a better quarterback and with some pieces outside of the offensive line, Utah takes a step up and starts to play better. I'll be anxious to see kind of how they go from here as they are seemingly sort of out of that Pac-12 race. We'll see. To be determined. I still think Utah is a really good team. I love Kyle Whittingham. I love this program. They really are a physical, tough program. So tied at 18, we've got Air Force and Tennessee. The Vols just beat Kentucky this week. Air Force beat Colorado State. Colorado State's not good, y'all. It was. I know a lot of people watch them face Colorado and take Colorado down to the wire. Colorado State is not good. Colorado's not good. Like, let's be honest. But yeah, Air Force was able to handle business. They remain undefeated. They're a tough team. They're a really tough team, and they're doing well. They deserve to be in the top 25. And Tennessee, like I said, they beat Kentucky. They went to Kentucky and beat Kentucky. Pretty handedly. They got their running game going, and for those who don't know, Tennessee is a running football team. I know we've been saying it, so if you've been watching our shows, that Tennessee wants to spread you out with a spread offense and run it right up the middle. That's what we've been preaching all season. They did that against Kentucky, what we thought was a pretty good Kentucky defense, but they were able to run all over them. I think they ran for like 263 yards, so it was pretty impressive to see what they did, and that earns them a top 20 ranking. Moving on, tied at 16, you've got Oregon State and Oklahoma State, which is kind of funny. I sometimes I get these two programs confused. Maybe it's the black and orange color scheme and the fact that they're both technically like OSU. But nonetheless, Oklahoma State is really good. Once again, they started the season off so bad, and they had that tough loss in week 2 against some no name team. I can't even remember who it was, South Alabama maybe. But anyways, took that tough loss and just kind of dropped off everybody's radar. But now they're back, and now there is a legitimate path for them to go to the Big 12 championship and win that. So I'm really impressed with them. They've got a very tough game with Oklahoma coming up this week, but that's a tale of two different teams right now. Oklahoma, they're sliding, they're dipping a little bit. They lost to Kansas last week. The week before, nearly lost to UCF, and Oklahoma State is on the uptick. It's a rivalry game. It's an in-state game. That's one to pay attention to. We'll be breaking that down tomorrow night, actually Tuesday night, and just pay attention to the channels. We'll be releasing a cut of that if you don't want to watch the full video. Then you got Oregon State. They did just lose to Arizona. It was a close game. It was at Arizona. Gosh, I know that coach is just kicking himself for relying on the kicker to take a fake kick and try to run it 25 yards to get into the end zone. Like, what are you doing? You have to make it into the end zone for this play to make sense. There's no first down marker. You're running out of time at the end of the half. So You forego 3 points to attempt to have your kicker, the worst athlete on the field, um, run it 25 yards to make it to the end zone. It was one of the riskiest plays I've seen in a long time. It was borderline stupid. It was stupid. So I don't know what he was doing there. Of course, they go on to lose by the 3 points that you would have gained by just kicking the field goal. And I mean, you live and you learn, I guess. That coach has definitely got to. He's got some sleepless nights coming up. So, all right, moving on to Oklahoma at 15. You know, they are coming off of the Kansas loss. That was their first loss of the season, though, and they still have the win against Texas. Now, you may say, well, if they both have one loss, you know, in Texas, they beat Texas head to head. Why is it Texas behind Oklahoma? Well, if you watch that game, I mean, it was a really close game, and Texas almost should have won it. I would say they were definitely in it. Um, it was a very close game, but Texas hasn't lost to a Kansas, right? They lost to Oklahoma. There's a big difference there. Sometimes a quality loss is better than um, a quality win in some ways, or it's weighted more. It's not, I guess it's not better, but it's weighted differently, But, anyways, moving on to 14, you've got, I always want to say the Arizona Cardinals, but it's not. It kind of looks like them, but it's the Louisville Cardinals. Louisville, wow, they put a thrashing on Duke this week, knocked Duke out of our top 25 and shut them down. Beat them 23-0, I believe. It was pretty impressive, and Louisville is a tough team. They, I don't think they're done yet. I don't think that they're done sneaking up and catching teams. So, keep an eye on Braum and this Louisville team because, I mean, they really look good. They can run on anybody. That was a solid Duke defense, and they were able to just kind of impose their will on with the rushing attack. It was very impressive to watch. At number 13, you've got Mizzou, the Missouri Tigers, and Mizzou has a really tough challenge coming up. They got to go to Athens to face Georgia this week, but so far their only loss is to number 12, right in front of them, LSU, and that was a close game. That was a shootout, absolutely, and the I love watching Mizzou play. I love their offensive style. They're good enough on defense to keep them in ball games and allow, Brady Cook to throw the ball to Luther Burden, and that's mostly their offense. They've got some other playmakers, and a pretty decent little running back, but yeah, I love watching Mizzou play. I think Georgia is on upset alert. I think that this is going to be a tough game for Georgia, and really, I don't think Georgia's gonna. I don't think you're gonna catch Georgia sleeping. I'll just say that. I think that they're gonna be up for this game. Um, they've got Mizzou at home and Ole Miss at home, and those are gonna be two of their biggest games of the season. So um, I think that Georgia's gonna be ready for that. Moving on to number 12, as I mentioned, LSU has the big win over Mizzou. They did. Let's see. They did lose to Ole Miss, and they lost to Florida State to start the season. So they are a two-loss team, but I think that they're really good. You watch this team, and I know a lot of you have. This is one of the best offenses in the country, if not the best. Jaden Daniels has been awesome. Throwing the football, throwing to Neighbors, throwing to Thomas. I mean, he's got weapons all over the field. Um, Love to watch this team. They've got a really big test this week against Alabama for essentially for the West. Ole Miss will have something to say about that, but because Ole Miss has the head-to-head win against LSU, so yeah, but Ole Miss still has to play Georgia and beat Georgia. So, which I mean, they certainly can. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that they couldn't, um, but yeah, moving on to Ole Miss, like I said, They still kind of control their own destiny. They need LSU to beat Bama, but they have the head-to-head against LSU. So if I guess if LSU beats Bama, Bama would still have to lose another game if I'm not mistaken, because Alabama has a head-to-head against Ole Miss. Anyways, there's a three-way race going on in the SEC West, and I'm not sure I know completely how it works. To be honest with you, we'll have to see how that one unfolds. These things have a way of working themselves out, anyways. But it's very interesting right now, kind of where that SEC West race is heading. So Ole Miss is tied at 10. They're tied with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is playing as good a football as they have. They went through that 4-game stretch of just tough matchups back to back to back, or they had like, I know it was Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, and USC. I believe they were all in consecutive weeks, or may have been like 1 week break there. But nonetheless, they had a gauntlet of a schedule that probably didn't look that hard at the beginning of the season, and then you find out Duke and Louisville are actually really good, ACC schools, and they ended up dropping their game to Louisville, I believe it was earlier in the season, and um, but right now they're playing really good. They're playing really good football. They just absolutely stomped their opponent this past week, and that was Pittsburgh that they played on Saturday, and boy, they put a whooping on them. I think it was 56-7, if I'm not mistaken. Their offense came to life, and they came to play as well. Moving on to Penn State at number 9. Penn State struggled this past week against Indiana. They were favored by like 30 points, and I think they won by 11, but it was on like you know, I think in the fourth quarter they had like a scoop and score or something like that. I was watching it earlier, and y- you know, Penn State's defense didn't look good this week against Indiana. I'm anxious to see kind of how they finish the season. Everybody's expecting them just to go 10-2, but I saw some things this week that concerned me on both sides of the football. And they did have a deep play to Lambert Smith late that kind of showed some life on the offensive side of the football. That showed that they do have the aptitude and the capability of going for a deep ball, but that was kind of the only highlight of the day, I think, for the offense. Um, I know that Drew Aller, he threw his first pick, which is outstanding to go this long without throwing a pick, but it did come against Indiana, and they were supposed to blow them out, but Indiana had a good game plan, and that's kind of what happens. You you come across a team and they circle their schedule, they circle your team on their schedule, and they say, this would be a big win for us, you're going to get our all, and that's kind of what happens when you're at the top. So we'll see how Penn State's able to bounce back and respond from that, but it wasn't a great win for Penn State this week. And but they say in our top 10 too. We're not gonna a win is a win, right? So we're not gonna beat them too hard for that. Excuse me. Moving on to number 8, you've got Alabama, the Crimson Tide, and Bama. They were off last week. They're coming off of a bye. Them and LSU. We'll know a lot more about Bama this week against LSU. Can this defense win them a ball game? Because I think that's what's going to have to happen if Alabama wants to win this ball game and inevitably win the West at that point. Their defense is going to have to slow down LSU. It's a really good LSU offense, folks. So, and then conversely, I mean, LSU's offense, or excuse me, LSU's defense is not that great. So maybe Alabama looks like world beaters on offense now because they're facing an easier defense in LSU. But we'll see. I think it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game, and I am so excited to watch that. So that'll be this weekend, folks. It's finally here. Moving on to number 7, we've got Texas. Texas has Kansas State this week, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be a really good game, really intriguing matchup. Um, Texas has played really well this season. They're on their second string quarterback, Malik Murphy. Quinn Ewers is out with the shoulder injury. I'm excited to see Malik Murphy in his second career start. Last week didn't go too well against BYU. I think he threw for under 200 yards. He seemed nervous. He seemed fidgety and nervous and uncomfortable. So let's see what he's able to do. Let's see if he can come in and in his second start be a bit more relaxed and a bit more productive. Moving on to number 6, you've got Oregon. And Oregon, it has been really one of my favorite teams all year to watch. I think that they're a very complete team offensively and defensively, and they showed it again this week. They had what was supposed to be a tough matchup against Utah at Utah in Rice Eccles, which Utah had won 29 of the last 30 in Rice Eccles, and it's a tough place to play. But you know, great defenses travel, and and Oregon showed up. They held them to 2 field goals, ended up winning. I believe it was 33-6, something like that. But you know, it was it was a really outstanding showing for Oregon, and they just proved to me that they're a playoff team. Um, them and Washington, and we'll see what Washington's able to do this week against USC. But I think that Oregon is a playoff caliber team, and they belong up there in the top 4. If you're looking at like a power rating, looking at this from a power rating perspective, they should easily be in the top 4 or top 5, but probably top 4. Moving on to the top 5. All right, at number 5, we've got Florida State. And do I think that Florida State is going to be kept out of the college football playoff rankings that are coming out tomorrow night? No, I don't. I think that they'll have them in. But for mine and Mark's opinion, at this moment, we think that Florida State is the number 5 team in the country. Um, I think that they had a really good week against Duke last week. And then this past Saturday, they had another strong showing. I forget who they played, but they did what they were supposed to do against them, and that was impressive to see. I think that they're a good team. To me, the Duke game really opened my eyes and showed me that Florida State can turn it up on offense when they need to. They kind of played from behind that whole, first half, and then in the third quarter, they turned it up, made some adjustments on offense, and started rushing Jordan Travis a little bit more, and that ultimately won them the game. So it was impressive for me to watch them um, change pace a little bit and find a way to win. So I think that Florida State will be in the top 4. We could have easily moved Washington out. They've really struggled the past couple of weeks against lesser opponents. Michael Penix had a great game. He had four touchdowns this past week, but um, I think that the Washington defense is going to end up costing them somewhere. I don't know if it's against USC necessarily, because Washington's going to be able to pretty much score at will on USC's defense, seemingly. We'll have to. That's why we play the games, though, right? We'll have to watch that. But Washington is still a really strong team. They could definitely win the Pac-12. I would love to see another rematch of Washington and Oregon, but we'll have to wait and see if we get that or not. Moving on to number 3, we've got Ohio State. And these next 3, Ohio State, Georgia, and Michigan, we've got Michigan and Georgia tied at 1, Ohio State at 3. I've seen them mix in every different way. So, these are interchangeable for sure, but I don't see many people who are not claiming them to be the top 3 teams in the country. So I think that you know Ohio State should definitely be in there. They definitely have the strongest resume. And then when I look at Georgia and Michigan, I see 2 teams that are more they're ranked this high mostly from like a power rating perspective. They look like two very complete teams, very similar teams. They do a lot of things similar. Running the football whenever they need to, they pass the football when they need to, and they shut people down on defense. You could definitely make the argument that Michigan does a better job of shutting teams down on defense than Georgia has done so far this year. Um, I think Georgia has a slightly stronger schedule, uh, but um, but yeah, those two are interchangeable, and you see the little asterisks there showing that Michigan, they cheat. So we almost didn't want to put them in our top 25, but that wouldn't quite be right. At the same time, I think that what they did was pretty egregious, and pretty bad. But moving forward, teams know that Michigan was doing this. So if it really had that much of an effect on the game, then we'll see that on the field. We'll see Michigan struggle to put teams away on the field because teams know what Michigan was doing. So they're going to find ways around that. Whenever they go face Michigan, they're going to change their signs up, and there won't be any sign stealing advantage for the Wolverines moving forward. So let's see how they respond to this. And let's see if they really are the number one team in the nation, or if this was all just some big cheating scandal. I don't think it is. I think Michigan's just a really good team. But they wouldn't have been doing this if it didn't give them an advantage too. So what was that advantage? How much does it account for? We'll have to wait and see. Um, but anyways, that's been our top 25 for week 10, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would just do me a favor, give us a thumbs up, give us a follow if you're not already following and subscribed. Share it, you know, grab somebody else's phone and subscribe on their YouTube account. All those things are perfectly sane things to do, and they help the program a lot. So we would really appreciate that. Um, Stay tuned to the channel. We'll have our Week 10 preview coming out tomorrow. If you haven't watched already, check out our Week 10 reaction show. That'll be dropping as well. And that's it for me, folks. I'm Mason, and this has been the First and Long College Football Show. Stay tuned, but have a good night.